What is going on, everybody? Welcome to week 8 of Look Who's Chalking, week 8 of the NFL. This is typically when I would be thrilled. Just we're right in the midst of the bye weeks. You take certain teams off. There's a London game. Oh, you're going to show me what, 10 teams? I'll figure out what to bet. But no. This year, we got the random grenade, the midseason grenade that I wasn't expecting. But then when you look forward, you look at your fantasy team, you go, I guess I have nobody on bye this week. Oh, wow. I guess my opponent has nobody on bye until you look at the DraftKings prices and you go, there's a million people here. Who the hell's on bye? You learn there are no buys. And that's where we are. Week 8. There are no buys. And now I'm thrown for a loop here because I wasn't expecting this. And you guys know I dread this. This is where people like Gary and his 3,000 lineups have an advantage over all of us Charlie Buckets out there. So from one Charlie to one Willie, Gary, maybe you can help me here because I do want to say something. Kind of as my men's warehouse picks of the week all season have suggested. I have good news. I haven't lost a single week all year.
Beautiful.
I have bad news. I haven't really won a single week this year. I've been some guy like that episode of Seinfeld. I'm basically even every single week. And it's weirdly frustrating and satisfying at the same time.
Yep. Oh, you should feel satisfied, dude.
No.
You should feel satisfied. No, you should. Because if you're not winning, which is hard to do as a tournament player, obviously, if you're not winning, you should feel very happy as a break-even player, 100%. So you absolutely should. But I consider the NFL schedule makers scumbags this week. I consider them complete scumbags because all they're doing is, in my opinion, is the NBA starts this week and it's not a real threat to them, but they may want to make sure that it's no threat at all. And so they don't let any of their local markets invest in the NBA because they want to make sure that there are no buys. Every team is playing. Weirdly, right in the middle of bye season. It's garbage, yet I think that's what they're doing. And here we are.
I believe they did something in the past during the summer, maybe around NBA finals time. Was it something draft related, or it was during COVID? It was delayed free agency. It was something to it.
Damn, they're no stranger to this kind of thing. They're 100% no stranger to this kind of thing. Like they'll schedule their NFL draft right on top of NBA finals. They'll do like whatever they can to put their foot down on the opposing leagues. The NFL will do it. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. They are ruthless owners with ruthless pockets. And it shouldn't be surprising to us at all.
Well, hopefully their pockets are going to be able to afford some good running backs this week because we're going to find a way to. What I decided I'm going to do this week, I wasn't expecting all these damn players. This is one of those. I remember like 5 weeks ago or something, I said, oh, this is terrifying. I'm looking at this lineup. I could see so many people. Oh, that guy could win the slate. Oh, that guy could win the slate. Oh, that guy can win the slate. Oh, those two cheap Houston receivers, they could be a part of the winning lineup. It's just like, it's a very unfortunate because it's like, how am I going to, I don't know, man. This just seems like not winning the pick 5 lottery. This seems like you got to win the Mega Millions. And it's a little depressing, but I guess I'm just going to come out around even anyway. But what I decided I'm going to do this week, there are a couple players. I'm just going to put my money saying, I bet you this guy is going to perform in top 3 in that position. And I bet you that guy is going to perform top 3 in that position. And I'm stacking them in like 80% of my lineups. If I'm wrong, I'll deal with it. If I'm right, I don't feel like doing a Rubik's Cube for every single, there's just too many players. And once we pull up these prices, you'll see them because they're all over the place. I don't know. What did you think when you saw this lineup?
No, and honestly, I totally understand the way you were discussing that, but like that is what we have once again, especially at running back, where we have all these games, 13 game slate. You have running back options from the very, very top that you can make an argument for, right through the bottom of high 4K, low 5K options, and pick your poison. And like I personally am the type of player that believes in what you just said, which is planting my flag on a couple guys, going heavy on them, and we'll do our best to pick out those guys for you. But I think that is your best option because there are a lot of options for you on this slate. So much so that I'm going to write my leverage column tomorrow, and I want to do it on the history of running back on full slates because I think it's a fascinating topic.
Look at that. Look at I'm just looking at this board. Okay, CJ Stroud. He's going up against Carolina. You're going to tell me he can't throw 3 touchdowns down there, and then Adam Thielen on a run back getting another 28 points or something like that? You saw Mahomes finally going off last week. And by the way, if you want to know something that makes me sick, that I said I'm going to wait until I see Travis Kelce have 150 and a touchdown. I'm never playing him. Well, it took a whole 3 days. I guess I saw it, and I guess he's kind of back. But looking at if you can go back to the quarterbacks for a sec, I mean, tell me Dak Prescott with a good matchup can't be a part of the winning lineup 6,100 against the Rams. I mean, freaking Kenny Pickett was throwing all over him last week. Lamar went wild last week, played good in London. Now he's going to Arizona, where you saw what Burrow did to them over there. Hurts is obviously playing great. This is kind of a nightmare.
Yeah, no, I mean, it absolutely is. And once again, like I've been talking about it all year, we finally get a game in which Patrick Mahomes is a viable, expensive quarterback, and still he's not optimal because we had Gardner Minshew break out for 34 points at 5K. No one was playing Gardner Minshew, so for all intents and purposes, it was a Mahomes week, and I'm happy to see it as someone that likes to spend up at quarterback on DraftKings, but it just shows you the landscape that we are currently in, where cheap quarterbacks are going to be options for you week in and week out, depending on matchup and depending on situation. And, getting up to an 8K Mahomes, Hurts, or Lamar or whatever is a tough proposition.
I'm also sick once again. Maybe I'll give him time to, you want a cue and I'm sick? I'll buy you some time to find that I'm sick. Just to
I'm sick.
I'm sick.
I'm sick. I swear to God, I'm sick.
I am sick.
I am sick. And that was last week. I go, I'm not waiting 6 weeks to learn when the Robert Woods week is. Looks like it was week 1. I'm going to tell you why I'm sick. Because after the 1 o'clocks, I pretty much had an optimal lineup. Pretty much. I had a Lamar double stack with Andrews and Nelson Aguilar at 3,400. With
Great
Gibbs
play,
on the bring back, getting all those checkdowns. My men's warehouse pick of the week in Ford, who would have had an even bigger day if he wasn't injured.
Awesome play.
And
awesome
I'm going into the later. I did a Gary Hartman late swap. It turns out it wouldn't have mattered regardless. I found out that DK Metcalf wasn't playing. My thought was my lineup's so good, I'm willing to eat the chalk on Jackson Smith and Jigba because
right thought.
I need Cooper Kupp in this lineup. I need it because I don't care if everyone else has him. I have faith in what I did. It will take me. I was in 40 something place with
you played correctly.
3 or 4 players left. And son of a bitch, I'm sick. And it contributed to me finishing rather even. That Nakua went off. Hats off to him. He's not Robert Woods. But I'm gonna now. I think I'm tripling up and going all in once again on Cooper Kupp.
So I obviously don't know what fields you were specifically talking about.
The power sweep.
If it was the power sweep, if it was the power sweep, you played correctly. You should have absolutely gotten to Cooper Kupp. The JSN chalk was fine for you. You already hit on a Nelson Aguilar small piece. You hit on Lamar double stack. Andrews wasn't overowned. You played correctly. If it was the lotto, you want Puka in that instance because you absolutely need to hit the total nuts, and it's a different story. But in the power sweep, you played correctly. Unfortunately, Kupp ran very bad for us last week, and Puka was the right pivot. I would play Puka. I play Kupp 95 times out of 100. I still think we're looking at a ceiling there that he had shown the previous 2 weeks that very few people can get, and it just ran really bad. And the
thing was, I don't know if you caught any of that game. They were running every single play. Part of the reason, and I even heard some of the guys on your channel was saying, but I was saying this before, like, oh my God, they're going to have to just do a million quick throws because they don't want to deal with that Steelers line. And they don't have any running backs. They're going to have to piece together running backs. They ran Freeman 12 times, Henderson like 18 times. It was wild. They just kept running the ball. I didn't know what was going on. Like I was shocked. And then Puka was the one getting the looks. So I am sick, but I guess I will just look at this. Yep. I guess I will just lick my wounds and come back once again. And here we are. I don't need to see this. I already told you.
I'm sick.
Exactly. So when you're looking at this slate, who's your? We typically look at the games that are kind of forecast.
Yeah, rough games.
I guess that's automatically always the Chiefs.
Yeah, but they're better than the rest, but rough games up and down the board, man. Especially for a 13-game slate. You have pretty much nothing that really stands out. The Chiefs Broncos, I think, was 46 and a half. And the Patriots Dolphins, I think, was the only one above that. Like, we have a ton of just mediocrity for a huge slate.
There's one that stands out to me, and this is where a lot of my money is going this week. You saw how they played against the Chargers before they went into the bye. There was all the nonsense talk, but when push comes to shove and they have a matchup that's doable, this is going to be all Cowboys for me. I'm going to find a way to make it work. This is going to be an early Men's Warehouse pick of the week for me. Maybe I'll talk about it later. This is a week where Tony Pollard, he's in almost all my lineups. If he doesn't do well, I guess I'm just going to have to deal with it. I'm going with him, Dak, and CeeDee, with Cooper Kupp going the other way. But how are you going to I'll find a way. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be value for you because it's such a big slate, so you'll find a way. I agree, though. Like, and you know what? The Rams defense has been much better than I expected them to be coming into the season, which was basically a team with Aaron Donald and no names on the rest of that defensive front, but they have hung in there. However, this is a Dallas team coming off a bye. Are they coming off a bye, or was that last week where they beat the Chargers?
Dallas is coming off a bye.
Yeah, they're coming off a bye where, I mean, throw everything against the wall with this Eagles team. You know, they're at home. I don't think they're scared of this matchup in any way, shape, or form. I like everybody on the Dallas side, and I don't mind anyone coming back on the Rams side because this is in Dallas. You know, they're going to be playing from behind in all likelihood. This is right in that mix of the 4 or 5 games that are 46 or 47 over under. There's not that many spots for you this week. The Cowboys have a 26 team total. That's right up at the top. So yeah, no issues with that sniff, if you will, at all. I think the Cowboys are a solid spot.
That's what it's going to be for me. I think the jig is up with these Rams. I think they're still holding that reputation because of that week 1 win. I think it's over. The jig is up. They're getting crushed, and people are going to be throwing touchdowns all over the place on them. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Yeah. But I believe the best is still yet to come for this Cowboys offense, and I think they teased a little of that right before the bye that they had, and now had another week to work on it, getting a home game, welcoming in those Rams. This should be a week that's good for them, and if not, you know, I had my first crusty week.
No, I agree with you. And Pollard, you're not going to get him very often at mid-7s, I think, for what this role is and what this offense is. So I don't disagree in any way that he is an excellent play. And I don't think it's like a trap spot necessarily where you want to be taking the Rams. I don't know what the Cowboys are favored by, but I don't think it's a trap spot either. So I do very much like the Cowboys. They're 6.5 point favorites. So honestly, you don't even have to eat the fucking the hook. So I like Dallas for sure this week.
Yeah. All right. So there is one other thing that I want to say. We all know how great Christian McCaffrey's been. There are a couple games in my head when Sam Darnold was the quarterback of Carolina. Christian McCaffrey had over 12 catches a game. I don't know if that was a design of that offense or if Shanahan will even allow him to do so, but I can't get that out of my head. And another guy, and obviously in any sort of Cooper Kupp lineup like that where I'm stacking, he ain't going to be in there. I will be trying to get a lot of McCaffrey in my lineups because if I'm Sam Darnold, I remember those days. I remember what he did with my little catches, and that's not going to be out of my head. So if I don't get the look that I want, I mean, if you think about what he had DJ Moore and he had Christian McCaffrey there, and he peppered those two with targets. So I don't know how cheap Sam Darnold is. I imagine he's, since he's playing on short notice, I imagine he's going to be like the cash play of the week or whatever. But, we've seen him with McCaffrey before, and I'm talking about like 10 catches a game. So if you want a little preview as one of my best bets for the upcoming NFL weekend, it's going to be the over on those McCaffrey, either receptions or receiving yards.
Yeah, I mean, very hard to poke holes in Christian McCaffrey. The guy comes into Monday night questionable and plays 53 of 53 offensive snaps. So this whole narrative that one of Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Mason or that the coaching staff will be taking it easy on Christian McCaffrey is complete nonsense. And now you get a spot here at home with a Bengals team that does have the ability to push. If you want to spend your money in that direction, I will have absolutely zero issues with it. I will be doing plenty of it myself. Darnold, meanwhile, is very cheap. He's 4,300. Let me take a quick look.
Oh my God, 43?
Yeah, incredibly cheap. And so, yes, he looks like the cash game quarterback this week for sure. Is by far our top value on DraftKings at 3.4 value score. That $10,000 discount you get from the guys in the low fives or 8,000. I mean, that's a huge deal, especially in an offense that you believe in. So I get the Darnold play for sure.
Now, just out of curiosity, this is actually me asking, are you allowed, what tournaments is a good cash play allowed to be?
Yeah.
Is he allowed to be in one of the Power Sweep 3?
So for me, with quarterback particularly, I don't give a shit about ownership. I don't give a shit about exposure. I don't give a shit about tournament. I don't give a shit about where you're playing them. For me,
come on, give me one more. I don't give a shit. I like hearing it that many times.
Honestly, I don't give a shit about anything with quarterback. It's just about where you're getting it right. And I've been saying that for years, but it's easier to paint that picture when you're talking about it from a contest selection standpoint. And so when you ask that question, I answer it in the same way that I've been answering it from a tournament perspective for years, that I don't care about ownership at quarterback. That position, that stack, that week, it doesn't matter. It's all you just have to get it right. I don't care about getting leverage at quarterback. I just need the right stack. So if you love Sam Darnold at 4,300, you love the lineups that it's giving you. Yeah, of course it's a power sweep lineup for you. It's whatever you feel is great.
Well, so, Gary just talked me into it. You guys just heard two. Dak's 1, and we got Darnold as number 2. Who's number 3? I ain't telling you. I have dreams of winning it on my own.
Absolutely, as you should. Keep that competitive edge, dude. Go for it.
For what it's worth, we're not talking about this Raiders quarterback, man. Darnold was chucking last year when they gave him a chance.
No,
Darnold would chuck that ball. This is
a completely different situation. And I'm like, people are ranking him like 14-ish for season-long leagues, right? You go look at your quarterback rankings for your regular weekly leagues. So people are ranking him 14 for that at 4,300. He's obviously going to be popular. And I don't blame people.
I would imagine a bunch of people are going to probably want to ride Lamar over there in Arizona.
Yeah, and we've seen a ton of situations this year where teams come off monstrous spots only to let down in the next week. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen to Baltimore. And I was all over Lamar stacks last week, if you recall. I thought it was a great play. I loved Lamar Andrews last week, and I'm glad that I finally hit on something. But and he was underpriced. 7.6 was underpriced for Lamar. Now they price him up to 8,100, right in that mix with Hurts and Allen, which is where he should be, or Hurts and Mahomes, whatever, which is where he should be. But you do have a spot in Arizona. I have no issues going there. But again, that spend up a quarterback spot, you have to be sure of all the construction around you for the modern state of DraftKings. So I like Lamar. I don't love Lamar the same way I did last week.
I'm right there with you. If they get up, they don't mind handing it to Gus Edwards a bunch of times. No, I mean, 100%. That wasn't a big game for Geno. Wasn't a big game for Chalker against Arizona, you just get lulled to sleep by those bad teams who can't even get first downs. You know, you don't, but when you're playing a team like Detroit, you actually feel the need to really, step on their throat and finish the game and score a fourth touchdown and a fifth touchdown to really make sure they're out of it and give them nothing. So kind of with you on that. I was a big fan of his last week. Remember, we were like, well, what about another potential matchup? We even said that. We said Detroit. I got to say, I mean, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much. I freaking feel like we've been right about a lot this year, other than the one Devontae Smith botch. I'll take full responsibility for that. But for the most part, man, I feel like we've been on so much shit.
Yeah, and I apologize for not revising my men's warehouse last week with Metcalf. Obviously, I did say that there was the caveat that he was injured. And that spot of Seattle receivers was going to be a place to attack. And it was, JSN was a very reasonable form of salary relief. I hope that didn't mean everyone was going to Metcalf. Jake Bobo was an excellent GPP play. So yeah, but I agree. For the most part, we've very much been on it, and we'll hopefully keep that going here.
Well, let's keep it going then to that Houston game I was talking about. I mean, you can find some value in there. No, look at these prices. I heard that Bobby Trees ain't playing in this one. Check out some of the.
Is that true?
It's the very first game. I think I saw that earlier today. Look at these wide receivers.
I know. I wrote up. Oh yeah, he didn't practice it. Yeah, that makes things interesting. I mean, I wrote up cheap wide receiver volume earlier today, and Tank Dell as a DraftKings play still makes it because he's somehow 4,800. That is absurd. This is a guy that has been optimal for 2 of 7 weeks and then was hurt the week before the bye. And now if you're telling me Robert Woods is not going to be active, I get Carolina's been somewhat frisky defensively, but that's mostly in the front 7. I like Nico. I like Tank Dell. Both those guys for sure, especially if Woods, who has, listen, I think Woods is mostly cooked, but the guy has been out there for pretty much every passing down for the Texans.
Yeah, can you go down to Woods and click? I think maybe they'll give a news update there.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah, he's questionable.
I even saw that he missed practice, and it even said like he's not likely to play Sunday. They said something like that. Holy shit, you really gotta go down there for Bob.
Yeah, and so I thought about putting him in my column as well, but he's always been a guy that has made my criteria for cheap wide receiver volume, but I've only put him in once or twice because I want the matchup to be there for me to seriously consider him. He has not been a guy.
I like that highlighting. Thank you for the highlighting. Kid can't even read.
Great highlighting. Great highlighting. So yeah, no, I think I don't know if I'm playing CJ Stroud because the price is legit, 6,300. He's more expensive than Trevor Lawrence. But I do like the one-off plays of Nico and of Tank Dell for sure.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget, man, Nico has had some massive weeks. And it's like that wide receiver one that nobody's talking about. I mean, you look at some of these. I mean, look at some of these numbers. My goodness.
Absurdly cheap. Both of them, Tank and Nico, are way underpriced on DraftKings. DraftKings has been very slow to up the prices of receivers this year. Very slow.
Not just up. They don't care what happens to Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith. Their numbers are never going down. They're remaining in the 7,000s, and they don't care. They say, no, we're leaving it there. Nobody's going to play them, and these are just 2 statues, and no one's touching them, and we ain't adjusting the prices. Remember that fucking year, Hilaire, when he was still their starter? They put him at 4,800. Well, we got one of those this week. A couple of migraines got Bijan Robinson at 6,000. Did you see that?
Wow, I couldn't believe it. I was doing my first look show, and I just assumed that Robinson. Brian? I thought it was Brian. I'm going down the running back tier. I'm like, well, Brian Robinson, 6K on the road, blah, blah, blah. And then, it's Bijan. I couldn't believe it. That was wild. And if he is okay this week, meaning we get word that he's not ill still, I get it's a terrible matchup with Tennessee. We do not like to attack that rushing matchup. But that is a very low price for what that role is. A very low price, considering we saw him be a staple of the past game, someone that's going to get 15 to 20 touches per week, a very low price. So yeah, that's a tough
wow, man. You know what's pretty depressing? You look at those yards per carry every single week, other than one. I mean, Jesus,
Yeah,
2.8,
it's rough.
3.3.
It's the Josh Jacobs plan, and like how often do you want to just keep playing into role? Because Jacobs has one of the best absolute roles in all of fantasy, but he's been
I would prefer Jacobs over
3.2 yards per
Bijan
carry.
because
I
at
get
least,
that
you
this
don't
week,
have
for sure.
no, even if it's next week or the week after that, I don't have to. What if Algier gets hot? That coach said, well,
Yeah.
we'll ride that hot hand.
Yeah, I mean, Arthur Smith is the worst. He's the absolute worst for fantasy
Slash the
purposes.
best,
No
because if he's telling you he's going to do that, then he's doing you a favor. You want to know who's everyone says is an awful coach? Josh McDaniels. Me and you should love him because he goes, I don't give a shit. I'm running this guy out here every play. Go ahead. We'll franchise you again. There's another 28 carries. If you don't do anything with them, there's nothing you can do. But if you know I mean, the Chalker-Roach has no problem with those opportunities. Right. We just need I miss him. He's my guy this year.
Speaking of the Raiders and former Raiders quarterbacks, no one that I know was on the fact that Derek Carr was checked down. I'm just going to start calling him check down Carly instead of check down Charlie. And no one was on that before you. And man, everyone's seeing it now with like him on the Saints with Kamara. Everyone's finally knowing this is check down.
You could add this when I told everybody that single stuffed Oreos has the same amount of stuffing as double stuffed Oreos. They just use a fluffing element. Everybody goes, you're just a crazy guy. You're nuts. You're nuts. You're nuts. Plus 3,300 given on my video on Odd Shopper today. Eventually, sniffing is believing. And eventually you'll all get there. Look at this leaning tower of noses that go full screen for 1 second because you can't see it with the cropped version. The leaning tower of noses that I got next to me. Look at that. It's twice as big now because I bought a second one and now stacked them. Anyway, going back to this lineup here. Don't worry, Gary. If you got to check on.
Yeah, my baby woke up, but it's very abnormal for him in the middle of the night.
Well, that means we're on to something. He knows some of these are good plays.
He's been sleeping through the night, no problem, which is very strange. Hopefully he
go ahead.
No, I'm just saying hopefully he puts himself back to sleep. I mean, my wife is in the room. She'll wake up if he is actually up, but I feel bad. No, you're good. You're good.
Pissed off that Baker Mayfield took 10 minutes on that last drive and didn't leave him enough time to tie the game.
Aren't we all? I was on Mike Evans's tonight. Yeah, didn't work out.
Do you know I needed those last 2 carries from James Cook, and I really thought he was just going to burn the whole clock down 2 scores. I was almost
I mean, this Latavius Murray thing is kind of crazy for Buffalo.
How about these 2 running backs in the New York game? You got to think Breece Hall is going to be as chalky as they come. I mean, that's a cheap price for Breece Hall, who his projected rushing total, if you're to bet the prop this week, is in the 70s. And those people know what they're doing. And if you're putting Breece Hall at 5,900 and he has home run potential in a game where the Giants have played admirably these last 2 weeks. Let's see how they do against the Jets defense, because if the Jets keep getting the ball back, they'll keep feeding them. And it'll be a lot of 2 yards, 4 yards. He'll do his best Barkley impression. 4 yards, 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard, 80 yards. And I think if they have all these opportunities, but is the chalk worth the squeeze?
Yeah, that's the question per usual with these type of guys. And he will be that chalky. He is projecting as our top running back value of the slate, our largest ownership in large field of the slate by a good amount too. And I'm obviously a biased party here as a Giants fan, and I'm not buying into much with this team. I don't think they're very good, but I do think they have talent on that front seven. They've been a solid defense the last 2 weeks. I do not want to play a 25 to 30% Breece Hall here personally. That is not the path I want to go. On a 13-game slate, there's plenty of pivots. I don't think we're getting a 40-point ceiling there.
You brought up something on your football show last weekend. I was listening to most of it, heard some of your takes. I believe you sniffed out Hyatt on the Giants.
Yeah.
He was 30. Forget, he was in the 3,000s last week.
He was Stoneman. Yep.
He's in the 3,000s again this week. Is Sauce Gardner going to be matched up against him or Slayton? Is he going to get looks? Because if he's getting looks and he's earned some of Tyrod Taylor's trust, I mean, you don't need that many points for him to make it worth it. And there always is the ruckus factor when these two teams play. There's going to be a couple big plays.
Yeah, no, I think Sauce will probably be on Slayton as like the true wide receiver one that's running every down. And Hyatt, listen, you want a form of salary relief that has a floor of 0 and a ceiling of 16 with a 3 for 100 type of game. That's the guy to go to for sure. So it's 3,100. I don't love the matchup, but we'll see who's starting a quarterback, because I believe in Tyrod much more to run this offense right now than I do Daniel Jones. But he's definitely going to be a large field tournament option for you.
All right. I mean, like I was saying before, man, there's so many options. If you can go to that flex and show me some of these guys, I tried in my head to like, oh yeah, and then them, and then them, oh yeah, and then them. Oh, you have to get out of this game so we can see the whole slate.
Tons of options, a bazillion. You have Tyreek, who I usually don't like to play against the Patriots because that's the typical Belichick will do everything he can to take that player out. And he did that successfully when they played in week 2 or week 3. But this is a guy with a massive ceiling. I like Kupp on the bounce back. I have no issues with CMC. Travis Kelce has what DraftKings considers the best matchup against tight ends. I mean, you have a ton of spend up options this week. So if you want to go there, but I prefer it in correlation, and the type of spend down options you go to will be pertinent.
God, there's so many of these. I do want to actually say San Fran, they've been a little bit, I hate to say, a little vulnerable on the defensive side of the ball these last couple of weeks. And you're about to get those post-bye Bengals coming into town. I was thinking if I am going to do one of those cheap stacks, or it ain't that cheap when you think about it, but if I do use Sam Darnold and put McCaffrey, whether I want to go Kittle or Ayuk or something like that, I'm not scared
you have to go CMC for sure.
Yeah, absolute CMC. I was saying either.
Between Ayuk and the Darnold double is interesting. Yep, for sure. Yep.
All I'm saying is I'm not scared. I'm not scared of the Niners defense with a 5,800 T Higgins. He can get catches against them. He can get catches against them being healthy. So that's a guy that I think the matchup will scare a lot of people away, especially how he's played earlier. He's had a couple weeks now to get the injury right. And I imagine this guy who wants money, he's going to have to start performing in no better time than right now. The Bengals are weirdly set up to have a good game, weirdly enough, against San Fran in San Fran, as crazy as that is to say.
The other unique thing about the Bengals is because Darnold is so cheap, you can basically utilize him as if he was Joe Burrow. So you can take Darnold, do a double stack or a skinny stack, and do multiple Bengals on the other side because he's so cheap. So if you want to invest in that game, it's certainly a reasonable tactic. So I don't disagree with Higgins. I like Chase just fine. I don't like Mason really because I just don't believe in him at the moment. But I think all those. Gary,
do you know what he's done in every single game? Do you know what he's done in every single game? Other than the one after I criticized him? No, I don't mean it like that.
Oh yeah, no. Since that one game last year, he's been trash. Yeah,
I said it on this show. I'm like, I've been watching this guy. He looks awful. I'm never playing him. He had the best game in the history of his life, and he's done absolutely nothing ever since. Why do they do this to me? Are you going to tell me now that Puka Nacua is going to go on a Robert Woods run and never have another big day, but just to screw me, him and Kelce had to have that right after I said it? Anyway, I do think that game is there. Interestingly enough, we didn't say anything about that Denver game.
Yeah, that's a good game too.
I do want to say something weird, man. I noticed that Breece Hall's getting the good PR, but Javonte Williams isn't. His use went up, and if you've been watching these games, it's not easy to run well on the Chiefs. He ran well against the Chiefs 2 weeks ago. It's like the team recognized it, and they featured him more, and he had a touchdown nullified by an idiotic penalty. And he looked great. 2 straight weeks, averaging over 5 yards a carry, 5,200. If you want to play a bunch of people and you're just thinking, oh, what should I do? I don't know. Javonte Williams at home is he's starting to actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sean Payton's starting to trust him, which has been the big thing all along, right? Sean Payton's been this boomer that didn't know what was going on in the league last year and came out and said as such basically in the post game that I didn't even know who Javonte Williams was coming into the season. And now he's starting to trust him a little bit. McLaughlin was his guy, but he only had 6 carries last week. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And I know how good the Chiefs defense has been, but if you want to attack this game with a mini correlation or secondary stack, I totally think that's totally fine. Pacheco and Kelsey and Mahomes and Rashee Rice, all these guys have excellent matchups.
Do you have faith in Rice? Do you have faith in Rice
to
continue?
I do. I do. And he's not too expensive here at $5K. I get they've priced him up, but not too much. So we've gone from 36 to 41 to 47 to 5. But he's still the guy that I want to attack in that receiver core because I just think he's by far the most talented, and I think Patrick Mahomes is starting to recognize that. So yeah, I'm totally okay with Rashee Rice.
Any weird chance? I don't want to say it's for certain. Any weird chance the Broncos D is turning it around after what they did to the Chiefs 2 weeks ago, and then they had another good week coming into the season? It was thought to be a strength. Did they maybe just have some of the most embarrassing weeks of all time? And now they kind of have their act together?
I don't think that's totally out of the realm of possibility. I think that's a reasonable argument. I don't have a strong take on it because, you know what? This week will be very telling. So if you want to get ahead of it, where you feel like those were fluke weeks 1 through 5.
Oh, I'm not playing them. I'm just saying if you need to
no, I'm not saying play the Broncos D. I'm saying if you want to play the Chiefs in spades, if you want to play a ton of Chiefs, it's a good litmus test as to was that an aberration? Because I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't.
I think the Steelers have the Jaguars at home. Like so many of these. Oh my God. Very interesting.
Gazillion games. The slate's fucking annoying, to be quite honest.
All right, good. Thank you. I need to hear some frustration because that's how I felt. So I was like, come on. This should be 2 slates. I should be looking at this week's slate and next week's slate. It's a nightmare out here.
I really liked last week because it was only 10 games and everyone thought all the games were ugly and there were interesting edges to attack and it played out as such. I do not feel this week is the same with 13 games and a ton of average environments with pretty efficient pricing. I do not feel that this week is the same in that sense. I do not like this week.
Yeah, this week's a nightmare. And by the way, whatever I said before, the chalk is worth the squeeze. That probably has earned title name for week 8.
For sure, absolutely.
Look at some of those receivers right there. Kirk is good every single week. He's never not good anymore.
He's
and they'll just cement him. Can you click his look on the right? Look on the right. It's the same thing. Doesn't matter if he plays well. We don't care. We don't care. We're DraftKings.
The issue is like the ceiling isn't there for you to be optimal. Maybe to be viable. It's not there for you to be optimal. So like it's a great play because he's got such a nice floor. The role is excellent. But we have not seen these major ceilings from Christian Kirk that I look for to win a tournament. So I'm still more interested in Calvin Ridley, even though we've only had 2 of 7 weeks that have been, viable.
Me too. And by the way, am I looking at the right picture? Does that look like the hills have eyes? Is he like deformed in that picture? Am I out of my mind? Am I seeing that right?
I don't have any takes on the Christian Kirk headshot other than he's got a big forehead. I don't really.
Okay. All right. So show Ridley because that's an absurdly cheap price after kind of a bad 2-week stretch. And that is a bad 2-week stretch. Wow. 1 for 5 yards. My goodness. At least, people won't be excited to play him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the whole thing is like the floor he has proven to be very, very low and the ceiling he's proven to be very, very high. And like, I don't necessarily like this week going into Pittsburgh. I think it's kind of ugly. But there's a ton of this whole slate is ugly. So he's sub 6K now. I do not at all mind attacking a sub 6K Calvin Ridley with a 30-point ceiling.
Gary, you sound like a pretty confused guy this week. So why don't you do us a favor? You owe
Yeah.
us. You owe us from last week. So
I
why don't you
do.
put on your suit and
Okay.
why don't you go scrolling and find me something to wear to a wedding?
It's funny, Erdy. It feels absolutely terrible. It feels awful because of how bad he's been, and because of the joke that it's become on this podcast.
Oh no.
But Devonta Smith, he is now. Listen, they're not aggressively pressing him.
Bro,
like
you're watching the tape from the ring right now. You're like, oh, come on, it's not Devontae. And now you're gonna get that call after you've got 7 days. You're cursed now.
It's 300 less than he's been all season on a main slate, and the Washington Commanders have been awful against opposing pass games, both with the pass rush situation, but we just saw it last week with Jalen Hyatt getting a bunch of 4 or 5 targets where he was wide open. He connected for 2 of 75. You're the A.J. Brown versus Devonta Smith guy, but to me, with the way this Washington defense has been, this is a Devonta Smith week, and one of these days, there's got to be a squeaky wheel narrative here. Like, this is a alpha blue chip wide receiver. They don't want to let him strolling right along for half the season with single-digit DraftKings points games, meaning 10 to 50 yards. So I know you've done it a couple times. I wouldn't do it unless I felt great about it. I think this is the week. No one's gonna click it. No one's gonna click it.
All right, you got Devontae Smith. I got Tony Pollard. Maybe Tony Pollard is somewhat owned. Maybe other people are going to say it's not a bold call. All I'm saying is I'm winning money if Tony Pollard has himself a day. That's how much of my stake I'm going to put into this guy. He is my men's warehouse pick of the week. This is week 8, full ruckus. I'll be happy to return next week when we don't have to go through endless amounts of games and we can knock some more teams off the side. When did they go to Germany soon too? I don't know if that's next week. Maybe that's the week after that. So plenty easier slates. You can help out more of you Charlie Buckets out there. I know you guys. I know you got like a chip in a chair. You got 2 tickets and a prayer. I know the deal. Next week, we'll be back to that. Hopefully, we can survive this week. I've been even Steven every week. Something tells me that stack is going to go off, but everyone else is going to put up zeros, and I'm going to break even once again. But like my uncle always told me, no news is good news, and I guess that's the same thing when it comes to winning or losing money. All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming back. We'll be back next week, week 9. Make sure you're subscribed here to the YouTube channel or wherever you are listening, whatever audio platform. We sincerely appreciate it. Come check out me and Gary's stuff on our other channels. Gary's on Establish the Run. He does his early DFS DraftKings show. He does his basketball stuff on Odd Shopper. I do my hockey stuff and NFL stuff. Lots of content if you enjoy our stuff. I know that some of you guys do. You're commenting all over the place. We sincerely appreciate it. It helps us all out. You would think, come on, man. Me just saying, yo, how you doing on a video helps. Yeah, it does. I wish it did. I wish there was a better merit-based system. But you got to ask jackals to like and comment, so that's what we need you to do. And that's the end of me selling all that nonsense. All right, we'll be back next week. Take it easy.